Tasmin Wanandang Kimampi, University of Toronto. Anishinaabe Hmong. Manda Dash, Gitche Kilama Gigamagong, University of Toronto, Ishnakade. Dino Kimagwat, Aking Git, Shquanagame, Minik, and this Sobadboon, Wash May, Medas Way, Shanani, Medas Wat Wabun. Manda, Aki, Di Debenda Nawa, Yukiran Wenda, Mino Patun, Nishnabe, Seneca Minoa Dashwa Nishnabe, Desnagan, Take. Beja Emakwan Wanton, Gitchip is a win, Nendamo win a one. Mama way, Jim and Jim no do it deck. Asia Mama way, the wizard one, Minoa Dash. Anishnabe, Nisue Ishko then the Bendaji. Jimino Mama way, Nikazon, Mum P, Jim Mama way, Nikendo Jig, Kinagego, and take the tying. Gitchigami. Gitcha Ode Nangui, Jin Nakinage, Samanda, Gitchi, Kiwe, Win, Jinakade, Jinisa, Gitchi, Gimanang, Ode, Canada. Mino Dash, we, Mississauga Ode, New Credit, Asia Kenda Dig. We sa Gitcha Ode Nang, Yishpina, Chikwe Win, Gitcha Ode Nang Pane, the R1, Ganinja, Ashatogeng, Sa Nitam Anishinaabe. Hi everyone, my name is Rochelle and I work here at the University of Toronto, and I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the territory we're on. And I did it in Anishinaabe, which is the language of the Anishinaabe people. And if you weren't able to understand it, I would certainly encourage you to take a minute and think about why that is when we're on lands that were traditional territory of this community. And also, if, as I went through, you thought of all the different things you know about this territory and your relationship with the people who are from here, then that's amazing, and I would encourage you to continue to think about that. If there were gaps in that knowledge, I would encourage you to take a second and look at those gaps. Think about it this evening or later on. This is an amazing territory we're on, and I talked about some of the agreements that we are connected to through our living here. And so I just wanted to say those words to honor all of those people and to honor our guests and to acknowledge where we are and all of the people who have been involved, who have been touched by the processes that allowed us to be here. English.
I had to look at the time. Good afternoon, my relatives. My name is Clayton Shirt, traditional knowledge keeper. That's a title they sort of given to my generation. My generation's had to come up with certain titles. I'm okay with that. Right? It's implying that I have some traditional knowledge. I just consider myself a practitioner. That's all. Practice my way. It's a way of life. It's not an old way, it's not a new way, it's a way of life, it's a way of being. And there's many ways of being. We're the human beings before we're anything else. My bone, my flesh, my blood, liquids, minerals of the earth, human. The being comes from our relationship to the sun, to the sky, to the universe. All things of the earth have being. But we're the human beings who get together once in a while in a circle, and we share knowledge. And so an elder who has tremendous experience, wisdom, all these things, he would come up, or she would come up and do the opening prayer. So they asked me to do that. So it's a great privilege and an honor to say a few words of prayer. I'm going to say it in this language. I don't really speak my language. I struggle with it. I even struggle with English. All right? So all of that. That's a joke, guys. All right, okay. All right, so, but before we do that, I'm going to ask my beautiful sisters here, they're going to sing a song. They're going to invite spirit in with a song. And usually when we have any kind of ceremony, we have a song, our singers, they're sending their voices out there to the universe, to the Creator. They're asking the ancestors to be here with us and everything, all of that. So my sisters will do an opening song here. You can stand if you want. We're not the church, but stand if you want. like to acknowledge our first mother of mothers, our Mother the Earth. We acknowledge her for everything she does for us. We pray to her, we pray for her, we give thanks for everything she provides for us, the people, and our relatives. We love her, we say we wish to her. For bringing us medicine, for bringing us food, for all of us, the people. We come together, we stand, we sit, we send our thoughts, our prayers to her, our first mother of mothers, our Mother the Earth. So our minds now are one with this. We say we wish to the Son, grandfather of grandfathers. For a new day, a new beginning, we say we wish to grandfather's son. For giving the appearance of rising, for bringing warmth, for making things grow for us, the people, and our relatives. We acknowledge our grandfather, our grandfather's son. We acknowledge this. Our minds are one with this. I acknowledge Milkamis, grandmother of grandmothers. Again, I pray to you. Again, I pray for you. I acknowledge this. For you do this for us as I sleep, as our children sleep, as I sleep, as my babies sleep. She does this for us. She puts the waters, the rivers, the lakes, the oceans into order for us. For water is life. We acknowledge this. And many things you do for us, Milkamis. We love you. We send our prayers, our thoughts to you. So our minds are one with this. We acknowledge now, I acknowledge our Creator, the great mystery. I stand here with this feather to speak my truth to you, Creator. I send my thoughts to you, my prayers to you from my heart of hearts. I ask you to have pity on me, that I forget so often that I am an Anishinaabe before I am anything else, that you made me this, who I am, this gift you have given us, the gift of life. You've made us something very special, the people, the human beings. We acknowledge this. We come together. We ask you to help us to clear our minds, to open our hearts today, to speak good words today, to speak our truth, to speak about law today, natural law, your law. There is no other law besides your law, because there is nothing beyond you, Creator. We acknowledge this gift you have given us, the gift of life, all my relations. Miigwech. So thank you for allowing me to say that short. It's a very short prayer. It's more or less, I could say, it's Indigenous thought and how we see. There are over 600 something nations here before the Europeans came here. And here's an interesting thing that I always try to point out is that we never quarrel over the being part of being a human being. We quarrel over other things, the human stuff, like the tribes of Europe, the tribes of Asia, the tribes of Africa, but we never quarrel over the being stuff of being a human being. What I'm saying is our relationship to the Creator. We never used it as an excuse to take whatever another tribe has in the name of a Creator, our Creator. So I think that really says something about Indigenous, I'll use that word, Indigenous people. Right? Everyone else has. They all have their stories, but we have ours. And so today there's our sisters here from different tribes, different nations. I'm a Potawatomi Cree. I belong to a society, a Daewin society, a Ojibwe society. We have our teachings there. And I'm really excited to say this because when I used to listen to my elders, and I still do, in the lodge, they would say this: there will be a time, there was a time, when the Longhouse and the Day Lodge were side by side. There was a time in our history, and I see that happening now. When the Longhouse and the Day Lodge will be side by side, sharing their teachings, their acknowledgement, their medicines, their way of life. And that's what I see now, is the next generation, we're doing that. We're sharing our medicines, our teachings, and the greatest respect for our Haudenosaunee brothers and sisters. Hopefully I said that word right. I never get it right. But I just want to say that. And Miigwech, it's a pleasure and an honor just to say a few words. So, Miigwech, thank you. All right.
I would first of all like to thank Clay Shirt and the Spirit Wind Drummers for the opening of this session. I'll go very quickly into a short introduction. And we're really happy to have Beverly Jacobs of the University of Windsor here today with us. Beverly is quite well known, so I can keep the introduction reasonably short. She's an assistant professor there at the University of Windsor, which she recently joined. She practices law part-time at her home community of 6 nations of the Grand River Territory. And she recently completed an interdisciplinary PhD at the University of Calgary, which is the topic actually of her presentation today. So Beverly has a Bachelor's of Law degree from the University of Windsor, Master's of Law from the University of Saskatchewan, and a recent PhD obviously from Calgary. She's the former president of the Native Women's Association of Canada from 2004 to 2009. Her passion is about peacefulness, safety of Indigenous peoples, and as many of you know, for the past 25 years or so, much of her work has focused on anti-violence work, restoring Indigenous traditions, values, beliefs, and laws, and decolonizing Eurocentric law. She continues to advocate for families of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, and to educate the public about the history and impacts of colonization. Beverly is also a member of the Order of Canada, and she received the Franco-German Prize for Human Rights and Rule of Law from the governments of France and Germany for her human rights work in this particular area. After Beverly's presentation, we will have Susan Stewart, who is, to many here in the room, also very well known as the director of the Wakabinnis Bryce Institute for Indigenous Health at the Dalai Lama School of Public Health. She's a member of the Yellowknife Dene First Nation, a registered psychologist, and holds the Canada Research Chair in Aboriginal Homelessness and Life Transitions. And her research and teaching interests include Indigenous health and healing, with specialization in psychology, in Indigenous determinants of health, Indigenous pedagogies in higher education and health sciences, and Indigenous research ethics and methodologies. So she's also the chair of the Aboriginal section of the Canadian Psychology Association and advances Indigenous healing issues in health practice and policy. So we have really a lot of expertise, and I will simply retreat to the room to listen to Bev and Susan, and afterwards we'll open it up for questions.
Nyala Professor Lemons. And introduce myself in my language first. Scano, Slohuego, Diaso, the Wekuse, the Yambihaga, Nyagway, Sheltnet, Haudenosaunee. So greetings of peace to you. I told you my real name. My real name is Gowekuse, and that's my Mohawk Bear Clan name, and it means she's visiting. And I come from the bigger Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and also have been privileged to, privileged to have been raised very traditionally in my community, and with the long house ceremonies, and so that has always grounded me at where I come from and everything that I do. And all of the teachings that I have been raised with, I honor and respect that. So what I'm going to talk about today is about a very small piece of my doctoral work. And it actually flows from my Master's in Law dissertation, because I had researched the Great Law of Peace and recognized it as our international law. And that it formed 5 separate nations as a confederacy of peace. And those teachings were actually supposed to expand, and then the colonizers arrived. So, so this expansion is focusing on the question of how health, our healthiness, is rooted in practicing our laws. And so my work was actually even before I get started, sorry. So whenever we start our opening meetings, gatherings, ceremonies, traditional, when our chiefs meet, Grand Council meetings, I always start with the Thanksgiving address. In our language, O Handle, and so that's gives thanks to every living thing. And so what I was told while I was doing my research for my PhD is that this is where our healthiness comes from. And so that when we are giving thanks, it's our connection to everything. And so when the speaker is acknowledging and giving thanks, he's asking that everyone's mind is all one. So it's like this big, what I think of as one of those big cartoon bubbles, and all our minds are in this one bubble, and we're all thinking the same thing. And so that when these words are being spoken, that we're all of the same one. And so I'm not going to go through it. And the speaker also depends on the language as well, as when the speaker is speaking. They go through each of those connections to every living thing, and they can actually describe our relationship to it. So sometimes it can take up to an hour to 2 hours for an opening, right, for a Thanksgiving address, depending on the speaker and how much detail they put into that whole Thanksgiving address. And it's actually literally translated. It means words that come before all else. And so that's part of the literal translation of the Thanksgiving address. So this is what we do. And I wanted to acknowledge that as well, because this was the basis of my framework of my dissertation. So that when we were talking about our healthiness in the community, so I partnered with the community of Okazasne. And the reason why the whole dissertation is the impacts of resource development on holistic health, and looking at our laws, Haudenosaunee laws, and Eurocentric laws, specifically Section 35 of the Constitution Act, and how it protects the right to self-determination, and health fits in there, which is what I'm going to explain. So, and the reason why I chose the community of Okazasne was because they've done tons and tons of studies already in the impacts of the environment on their health, but also on the environment. And so there wasn't always things connected, and how the healthiness of the land equals the healthiness of the people. And so they've done all those studies and the impacts of the resource development. And I also chose because it's traditional Mohawk territory, so that's the original, our Mohawk territory is along the St. Lawrence Seaway, and it recognizes how all of the so many different jurisdictions are in one community. So we have Canada, United States, New York State, Ontario, and Quebec, all impacting one Mohawk community, and how much damage that's done to the tradition, to the culture of the Mohawk people of that territory. And so, and also the Mohawk Nation is one nation of the bigger Haudenosaunee Confederacy, right? A lot of people don't realize that. They think Mohawk and Haudenosaunee are the same thing. Mohawk is just one nation out of 5 different nations of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and all our territories and our languages are also all different. And so this was the belt that was created after the peacemaker's journey through our territories and creating the peaceful relations with each other. And so on the eastern side of this belt recognizes the Mohawk territory. Right? So, and beside it is the Oneida territory. In the center is the heart of the Confederacy, which is the Onondaga Nation. And then beside it is the Cayuga Nation. And then on the western side, they call it the Keepers of the Western Door, which is the Seneca Nation. And the Tuscarora Nation came in later to make it the Six Nations, but they were never formally presented as part of the bigger Haudenosaunee Confederacy. So I just wanted to highlight that just to recognize where the Mohawk Nation fits into this bigger Haudenosaunee Confederacy. And so that when I'm talking about Akwesasne very specifically, it also applies to the whole Haudenosaunee Confederacy. And so that academia-wise, even though I'm talking about my research study in the community of Akwesasne, it also applies to the whole of the Confederacy, of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. So there were two parts to my study. One was the empirical study that I did in the community and interviewed youth and male and female youth, male and female adults, and also elders or knowledge holders. And part of the empirical study was to determine what actually holistic health meant to the people of Akwesasne. In the language, it's Akwesasne Nogo, so that's the word for the Mohawk peoples of Akwesasne. And then looking at what are the industrial and resource developments that impacted the community, and what are the effects of the industrial and resource development on the holistic health of Akwesasne only. And so also looking at the connection between having healthy lands and waters and holistic health. And so they identified the connections between having healthy land and water and being healthy holistically. So that was the first part of the study. This could actually have been 10 dissertations. And so the second part of the study was looking at how our laws, Haudenosaunee legal traditions, can be used to protect our holistic health. And then looking at how Euro-Canadian law is used to protect, so that's section 35. And then what are the knowledge holders' views about utilizing Eurocentric law to enforce their rights and interests? So I had that interview with the knowledge holders and asked them very specifically, how do you feel about incorporating our laws into this Eurocentric colonial legal system? So they had some pretty powerful responses to that. I'm not going to go through all of it. I'm not going to go through all of the detail of it. I would have had to knee down a few days with you. So what I'm going to focus on is the specific issues about holistic health. So these were the theories and methodologies also that I used in my dissertation. I didn't use any Eurocentric theories or methodologies in my dissertation. I created what's called the Gaswenta theory. And the Gaswenta theory is acknowledging Haudenosaunee laws that's included in our canoe. Everything about our language, our culture, our tradition, and then the Eurocentric laws and their culture. So throughout the whole thing, because the whole reason, the whole purpose, the whole principle of Gaswenta was creating healthy relationships, right? Of peace, trust, and friendship. That's the whole basis of the Gaswenta, the Two World One Treaty, was that we respected each other, we honored each other, that we were going to share the land and the resources, and that we weren't going to interfere in each other's way of life. So to me, that is what reconciliation means, is what actually we need to return to these original teachings and relationships and understandings. And so my methodologies as well, I incorporated and developed the Haudenosaunee research and legal methodology, which is the same. So basically what I'm saying is that, because also my doctorate is interdisciplinary, so it included health, Indigenous research methodologies, and law, including Indigenous legal traditions and Section 35. So, which is the 2L. So one of the things that I found with our laws is that we don't put them into silos like that. We don't put them into health, we don't put them into law, we don't put them into education, we don't put them into these methodologies. This is like the academia, colonial creation. So it was difficult at the beginning to try to put this all together until it was finally talking to the knowledge holders and saying, well, everything that they had talked about, just put it all together and saying, our laws, and I even asked the question, this came from my master's in law thesis, what is the word in our language for law? And they told me there is no word for law. It's actually our way of being. And Clay already said that in his opening. This is our way of being. This is what's held on our canoe, in our canoe. Right? Our laws, our customs, our beliefs, our knowledge, our way of being. And then the language in our language, it's a Wenkel. And that's what that means, is our way of being, and that's what the knowledge holders, the language speakers have told me, that that's what it means. And so in going through this process and developing this Haudenosaunee research methodology, even myself, because when I was being raised in it, so also situating myself into the research, how do I fit myself into my relationship with the community that I'm working with? And because they've already known me, because of going through ceremony with them in their longhouse and interacting with their chiefs and their clan mothers and their faith keepers, there was already an understanding of my relationship with them. And it was like, yes, we will help you. How can we get you your PhD? And so it was really a really respectful, and that's part of that reciprocal relationship. So that's how I established our Haudenosaunee research methodologies, is this relational principle. Right? You have to establish relations with your community, with the people that you're going to work with. And the relational piece of it is also from Gus Winka, peace, trust, and friendship. So that relationship is also part of building the relations with each other. And then ceremonial, right? So ceremonial, also respecting ceremony, and respecting whatever processes and protocols in order to obtain their knowledge. Right, so in obtaining their knowledge, there's the part of reciprocal, and also honoring tobacco, and honoring what that means for us, we burn tobacco. And that's like our prayers and our respect for Creator and that spiritual aspect of it. And then also part of this methodology is storytelling. Right? So sitting with the elders and having conversations with them, and we're gathering this knowledge from them, and they're telling us stories, and sometimes they tell us stories that we don't even know why they're telling us. And sometimes it's a message that they need to tell us, whether it's a lesson that we need to learn, whether it's something that we need to research about, or it's something that they are very specific in the storytelling that relates to the topic of discussion. And so that's part of that methodology, right? So I had to really think, okay, so how does this work? Plus I had other researchers we have also documented different kinds of Indigenous research methodologies. And then visualization. So we're very visual people. And so we're very visual people. We need to see, we need to feel, we need to know what's around us at all times. And so that's part of what the elders also in our teachings tell us. And also we're talking about, when I asked you to think about the Thanksgiving address, that you're actually seeing what is being said. It's actually a vision in your mind when these things are being said. So that's part of that visualization, part of that methodology. And so when I talked about these academic, Eurocentric type methodologies like community-based participatory action research and photo voice. So what I said was, well, those principles actually are part of what our methodologies are. They've kind of stolen our methodologies, right, in the creation of their own. So photo voice is taking a picture of the answer to the research question and then telling a story about it. So that's what I asked the community members to do to answer the research questions. So also what I found very amazing and very powerful, because of what I was taught, I've had so many different teachers, Tom Porter, Jake Thomas, Bob Antone, John Mohawk, right? So these have all been people, elders who have knowledge and have also sort of put themselves also into academia, and they've written and they've studied and they've been able to also incorporate and maintain our laws and reciting all of our laws in the community. And so one of them was John Mohawk, who said that we have this Haudenosaunee intellect. It's like being raised with the traditions. It doesn't matter which community, because there's like 13 or 14 Haudenosaunee communities, that it doesn't matter which communities we talk about, we say and understand the same thing. And so when something is being said, automatically we already know what that means when they're talking about it and when they're teaching about it. And so what I found amazing through this whole process is that when I went through back to the Thanksgiving address, because I use this as the framework for the responses. So the pictures that I was getting back, I could insert it into every aspect of the Thanksgiving address. So someone talked about themselves as individuals, as women, as men, what the impacts are on children. They talked about the impacts to the water, the St. Lawrence River, the impacts on the fish, their relationship to the water, their relationship to the land, their relationship to our mother, our planting medicines, our plant food medicines, right? All of those pictures that came back from them were so easily able to fit into this framework. So it was really powerful, and the responses and the knowledge that came from the participants and their understanding of their relationship to our Mother, the Earth, and all of those things in creation. And they talked about their relationship to them all. And so what does holistic health mean to Akuzas Lona? So holistic health is directly connected to the Thanksgiving address because it reflects the healthy relationships and connections between all living things, including human beings and the natural world. And Mary Arquette, so she was also a scientist. Many of those who work with the Haudenosaunee Environmental Task Force are all scientists, or they've been raised or taught or recognizing their traditional knowledge as well as Western science. So Mary Arquette said that health is spiritual. Health is rooted in the heart of the culture. Health is based on peaceful, sustainable relationships with other peoples, including family, community, nation, the natural world, and spiritual beings. And that health is supported by the solid foundation of a natural, healthy world. So that's where the connection is between the people and being holistically healthy. And so part of this visual is what Haudenosaunee laws are. So as I was going through this process and I was learning that all these connections all related to the Thanksgiving address, and our laws are part of this bigger framework of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the political aspect of it and their relationship and their responsibilities. So I asked my husband, who's here with me today, who's an artist, and I told him this story of the findings of our laws and what the elders were saying, and also the knowledge that we already know, and just putting it into this academic piece to describe what it means. And so he put this together because it recognizes that our laws are also very feminine, starting with the creation story, starting with the roles and responsibilities of our clan mothers who are the leaders in our communities, and also the balance between the men and the women, because this wampum belt is called the Wampum Circle of 50 Chiefs. And so it acknowledges the role of the women to choose those chiefs, but also the little fine rings is the water, and the relationship of women to the water, and all of us as human beings to the water, and the relationship to the water, and the spiritual aspect of it. So the star representing the spirit of our relationship. So that's the spirituality of it. And the 4 directions is the green, representing the ceremonies in 4 different seasons. There's all kinds of things that we can take 4 directions, 4 seasons. Ceremonies is also part of that. Oops. Well, that slide didn't turn out too good. So when it came to the relationships and the connections to healthy lands and waters and holistic health, so this is where it all came together, and our acknowledgement of the connection, and ceremony being a big part of that, and the rites of passage ceremonies as well, about the healthiness for the young people. And so the one on this side is the rites of passage for the young men, and on the far right is the rites of passage for the young women. And so that also acknowledges that we had ceremonies from birth. Every time there was a change in life, and so there was always a ceremony. And so that was the healthiness. That was what maintained our spiritual, mental, physical, emotional well-being. And the slide that didn't work on the outside is environmental, because the environmental piece is where we're all connected, and the relationship to the land and the water, and our well-being around us, right? The relationship. And also the relationship to the water, like I said, and the planting and the lands. That the land needs to be healthy, the water needs to be healthy in order for us to be healthy. And so there's that reciprocal relationship that we have to ensure the maintenance of the water and the earth. And so our ceremonies do that. Our ceremonies every season goes through that process. So right now we finished our midwinter ceremonies, and we're moving into opening the trees. So we just had a ceremony for that, to open up the trees in order and to give thanks to the trees, because the maple sap is now running. So we have a ceremony to give thanks for that, and we have a ceremony when the sap's finished, and we drink the sap, and then we have a ceremony to close the tree. So that's how much respect is given to just the trees and the relationship that we have with them. And so our ceremony is also a recognition also of that Thanksgiving address, right? The Thanksgiving, every ceremony is also done to do that. But all of these ceremonies, and some of them are very medicine ceremonies, very sacred ceremonies that only those who are part of that ceremony participate in. And we have ceremonies that help the mind when somebody is mentally ill, or somebody is having emotional breakdowns, or someone who has physical harms, emotional. All of our ceremonies do that, every single one of them. And there are specific ones that are done for very specific things. And so if we were to follow our own, one of the impacts of colonization is that we were never given the ability to have and institute our own health systems, or even our own legal systems, or even our own education systems, because we've always had to incorporate them into the Eurocentric colonial system. So if we were to build our own health systems, our own legal systems, like I said, there's no difference between either of them, that if we were to build our system as very holistic, that's what that means, is that it encompasses everything, and so that we have that responsibility to maintain it. And we've had people to maintain it since colonization. Like, even though colonization has impacted us horrifically, we've also had very resilient, powerful medicine people, leaders, ceremonial people to maintain this. Because it's never been lost. It's never gone. We still have our language, we still have our ceremonies, we still have all of these things. Except now we're having to deal with this colonial system that thinks it can control us, and has controlled us. But now, those of us who are saying that's enough of that crap, we are now going to incorporate and revitalize, support our knowledge holders, our ceremonial people, our spiritual knowledge holders, our healers, in whatever way we can. Language speakers. Right? So because we know that this is what keeps us healthy. And this is what this study has confirmed. That this is what keeps us healthy, holistically, whether it's physically, emotionally, spiritually. I forget. Emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally. See, I'm not all here right now. And environmentally. Right? So it's bigger than those four, and also environmentally. So when we talk about our legal traditions, so we talk about our legal orders. So legal meaning that this is our way of being. These are the things that we have been able to maintain. It protects our holistic health when we're actually practicing it. And it's being transmitted from one generation to the next generation. So that means we have to continue practicing it. And so when we're continuing to practice it, it means that we're actually in our spaces to practice it. Which for me means I need to be at the Longhouse 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Which means I'm no longer here. I'm no longer in the institution. Right? So I made a conscious choice, and I'm kind of in that two or wampum where I have both feet in one canoe and one ship. So when you're in that space, you're like it's not stable. So I have to make a decision, right? It could be strong on both sides, but you have to make sure that the ship and the canoe are going on at the same time, and that you're not going to fall out. So this is what I've been taught. So this is what my elders have always told me. This is what my uncles, my aunties, my grandmothers, right? They put me in that space within the longhouse and where I need to be. But they also know that I made a choice to educate about this. And actually I have an elder who was from the community, and the community had asked him to be my committee member, my PhD committee member, so he was part of my committee. And also, so he supported me, and what he had also talked about is that a long time ago, they had said that we would sacrifice our people to be put into these systems to be able to teach it and learn it and bring it back home and teach it as well. So that's me. And many others that are doing this kind of work. So I wanted to recognize that, and that when we start talking about law, so talking about laws and relationships and the two-row wampum. So what I found in my interviews with the elders was that they were always talking about how our laws are responsibilities, right? So responsibilities to the natural world, everything. So everything that's part of our law. And when we start talking about Eurocentric law, all of a sudden we're talking about rights, right? I have a right to hunt, I have a right to fish, I have a right to health, I have the right to self-determination, right? All of these rights come from Eurocentric law. And so then how do we balance that? If that's the relationship that we're supposed to have. So when I looked at this aspect of law and talking about responsibilities, that was easy because every knowledge holder, everybody talks about our responsibilities according to our laws. But look at this picture. This is section 35, complex legal process to determine an Aboriginal right. So if I have this complex legal process to go through this process to determine whether we have a right to self-determination based on the Guswenta Treaty. So the process is a lot different, right? The whole way of thinking in law has nothing to do with responsibilities. It's about framing things within a colonial context. So the first thing to prove is Guswenta really a treaty? Right? And so then there's principles, well, how to determine what a treaty is. And is there an actual right that comes from that treaty? Is there something that, so I'm looking at the right to self-determination. It's never been litigated, it's never been argued, the actual right to self-determination. In fact, when Section 35 was being negotiated by the Canadian government in their First Ministers meetings in the early 80s, the issue of the right to self-determination was totally off the table. They thought that they're not even going to have that conversation about it. This is the first, Trudeau #1. And so having a treaty right then is based on this common intention of the parties. And then was the treaty right extinguished, right? So then there's this extinguishment process, this infringement process, and then was the infringement justified? So going through this process, so this is also part of my dissertation, which is a whole other way of thinking about this process, right? Like it's two totally different ways of thinking, two totally different worldviews. And so that was basically what at the conclusion is that the right to self-determination is based on our laws that protect holistic health. And it took me a little while to finish at the end because it wasn't making sense to me because I was trying to argue right to holistic health. But the elder said it's bigger than that. It's bigger, it's the right to self-determination. And actually, it was a conversation I had with Mary Eberts, who is a really good friend of mine, and I asked her we kind of talked about this right to self-determination, or this right to holistic health. And that's when she highlighted it. That's what you're talking about in this whole, talking about Haudenosaunee laws, it's about the right to self-determination. It isn't this narrow aspect of the right to health, holistic health. So that's what I argued, that the right to self-determination is protected by Gus under Section 35. So that was those who want to read the colonial aspect of my dissertation, that's part of it. So I'm going to end there, and I just want to acknowledge, and this was actually the final chapter of the dissertation, is about reconciliation and actually what that means. And so basically it means we're all responsible. That if you don't understand anything that I'm talking about, or if you have questions about what I'm presenting, then it's your responsibility to find out what it is that I'm talking about. All of us as Indigenous people can educate as much as we want and wherever we want, but once this knowledge is out there, it's now your responsibility. Because also what I was told is that we're all treaty peoples. Right? It isn't just one-sided treaty. It isn't just Indigenous people who are part of the treaty. There were two sides to a treaty. So then it becomes a responsibility of non-Indigenous people to understand what the truth is in this North America. Because it isn't just Canada and it's not just the United States. We came from a bigger place. And also one of our teachings is about thinking 7 generations ahead. Right? So that's one of our teachings, that we think every decision that you make today has an impact 7 generations from now. Right? So, and I know that more than 7 generations ago, my ancestors thought about me. I know they did. And our treaties, our wampum belts are indications of that. Because now we can use them as a tool to speak the truth and about those relationships that we have with each other. And also, not only the decisions that we make, not only how we make those decisions, but what decisions that we make. And knowing that every decision, because I know I do this every day, every decision I make, every conscious decision I make today, I think about, well, how is that going to have an impact 7 generations from now? Okay. I'm a grandma now, so I know what it feels like for the next generations to be looking for knowledge and to be looking for support. And if they don't have it, and the disconnections are there as a result of the impacts of colonization, that's all that repair that we're doing today and the healing. But it's all in our laws. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Jacobs. I wish that we'd actually scheduled 2 or 3 hours for you to talk, because I would love to hear all the details of your study. And yes, that was at least 10 dissertations in the question. And I'm sure you'll continue that program of research in your faculty position at the University of Windsor. Unless we try to get her to U of T, that might be a way you guys could figure out how to do that. We thought that Clay and I would start out a bit of a discussion with some questions. And Clay asked me to go first. Just so you know, I did ask him to go first, following our elder protocols. And what really stood out for me, apart from how wonderful it is to see scholarship that's grounded in our traditional knowledge, because as someone like yourself who's been in academics for a while, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it wasn't acceptable in this environment to bring forth our traditions and our knowledge. It wasn't really accepted as valid within this environment. I still think it's somewhat accepted as valid, but it's accepted in as much as that you or I are here and we're given jobs and we're given money and we're invited to do this kind of work. I'm really curious about the methodology part and about how the discipline of law that you've been working in, and I know you said you've been interdisciplinary, how your colleagues and your peers accept or understand the production of knowledge in your study.
Well, I had a really good committee. So in my committee itself, they were able to, so I had to do many different presentations. I had to do many different I guess, teachings. It would have been teachings about our law. And so once I was able to have, and they understood what I was talking about, and the Gaswanta, the theory was really easy because it's also visual. And being able to show them that this is our relationship with each other. These are my laws, these are your laws. This is what I want to focus on is our laws when we're talking about the protection of holistic health. And based on our own Indigenous legal orders. And there was no question. There was no having to fight for it or having to fight the methodology. It was very an understandable process for me to go through that with them. And now in the institution, in the law school, doing the same. So having to educate faculty about Indigenous legal orders and the colonial system, and also having the support. So I did have the support of all faculty. When we had made a decision, the whole faculty, of making Indigenous legal orders a mandatory first-year law course. And so once having, it feels like, and this is what I said when I decided to go to Windsor, that if I'm coming to Windsor or coming into any institution, that I need to feel safe. So if I'm not feeling safe or feeling attacked for who I am and where I come from and the laws that I practice, if I'm not feeling safe in this institution, then how can I be part of an institution to teach this if my students aren't going to feel safe? And so that was one of the things and one of my conditions in being into an institution, an academic institution, to be able to teach this, that is built within the institution. And so I've been there 2 years now, and it's amazing. It's been a really powerful relationship because now everyone is starting to really learn about what it means, and even what it means in constitutional law, what it means in contract law, what it means in property law, right? So all of the courses that are now, and they're asking questions, so how do we incorporate this into all these different disciplines of law? So it's been a very powerful experience.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have any follow-up questions or comments regarding this response? Please don't be shy.
So I'll put the microphone there in the middle, so if you have a question, you can walk up here. Okay?
thinking about, while I was listening to you talking, it was bringing back a lot of memories for myself. And my question only is because you spoke to a lot of elders, and some of those elders I know, and some of them are still here. But I was thinking of my old friend there, Jake. I was just a little boy when I used to have friends just hang around. And my question about seeking that knowledge about the elders, and how much time did you spend? Was it a great deal of time? And I know that a lot of our elders are leaving us now. So I feel kind of like I got a rush, right? Because they're not here, they're leaving, so they're aging, and I still want to gather that knowledge from them. So I was just curious about how you went about that in your own journey.
Well, for me, because I was, like I said, I was raised in it, so they were always around, and in ceremony, so in our longhouse ceremonies, and so just growing up with them, and because my family was also, we've all had, our traditional chief, so our chiefs and our clan mothers, I was raised in that, so going to a ceremony, whether it was for the trees or going to the longhouse to meet with them in council, it was just part of how I grew up. And I totally understand what you're saying about losing knowledge when our elders are leaving us. It does feel traumatizing, and it feels like I said, like I need to hurry up, or I need to make sure that we collect that knowledge from those that are left. But now we've had this discussion at home, my partner and I and my sister, and saying we are, and others in our generation, and saying we are the elders now. I think we have to accept that, because but like Clay, I would never say I was an elder. I would never say that. Because I'm too young. But it's also, what I was also told is it isn't about age when you're a knowledge holder, but it doesn't, the age doesn't apply to it. Because we can have young babies and children and youth who are knowledge holders. And we also have those, like Pat's, my partner's nephew is 24 years old, and he's a speaker in the Longhouse. And he knows all of the ceremonies, and so many in his generation actually are now being asked to be the speakers in the Longhouse and carry the ceremonies. So, and it was those people that we talked about who taught them, and our faith keepers that we've lost recently. So I think it's just acknowledging that it is going to continue, and I went to a ceremony where we had our midwinter ceremony, and our nephew, his little boy, he's like 5. He was doing one of the speeches in the Longhouse. So it was powerful. It was like knowing that it's going to continue is really a really powerful feeling. And especially when the young ones, because the Longhouse is now full of young people. And we are the older generation that's sitting there now. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from anyone in the audience, please?
sorry, I have a boring lawyer question, actually. Sorry. So I'm just curious about your, what the strategic decision around housing a self-government claim within a treaty right as opposed to just asserting it as a freestanding Section 35 right. Comment on that.
All right. So I chose it as the right to self-determination based on the responses that I got from the elders. And by them saying, these are our laws. This is who we are, and this is our way of being. And it comes from and is recognized by Gaswenta, because that's where our laws are held, in that canoe that flows along in that river. So that's where they had told me that the recognition of who we are as a people should be recognized as self-determination. A lot of them don't know that language, but that's the knowledge or the implication that I had received from them. Because then I asked them, that last question is, how do you feel about our laws being incorporated into a Section 35 right to self-determination claim? And they said, what they told me was, no, not until they understand what that actually means. Because they already know that the courts are also following Canada's sovereignty claims, right? So if you claim a right and if it's in conflict with Canada's sovereignty, you'll never get self-determination. So that's what they had said was, until they understand actually that they are pretty biased in their own opinions, and that they learn and understand our laws, then maybe.
So students send me questions. The students who take this seminar as a course send me questions before. In the interest of time, I'll read some, or I'll summarize one series of questions. Several people actually raised the issue of the focus in your analysis on the intergenerational impact and the importance of looking at the future for a holistic approach to health. And so several students asked, can we in the international environmental context learn something from a holistic approach to health that you present? Maybe if you could comment on that particular issue.
So just looking at it as an international framework?
So more there is an increasing emphasis in environmental law on the responsibility towards future generations, and you seem to discuss in your analysis particularly how this holistic approach to health is all about looking at, you were talking about looking 7 generations ahead. So is there something particularly important that can be learned for the international environmental movement, international environmental law, with respect to this kind of holistic health approach?
Okay. I think that when we're talking about these, this frameworks in different spaces, if we're talking about it in an international environmental framework, as Indigenous peoples, that's always been part of our responsibilities, which is our laws, is to look after our mother, to look after the lands, look after the resources, look after the water. That's always been our responsibilities. And so that piece that I have on Gaswenta about responsibilities, it's about our responsibilities to take care of those things. And our people have never forgotten about that, and have always taken care of those responsibilities. So even all of those ceremonies that I have, talked about, when we're doing those ceremonies, we're not just doing it for us. We're doing it for everyone. We're doing it for every human being. Because when we're giving thanks to all those things, that reciprocal relationship, that we are ensuring and maintaining that the natural law and everything around us is taken care of. So that also takes care of you. We're not separating this. Because part of our law is also about humanness and acknowledging our human relationships, right? About love and kindness. These are principles of our laws. Love, kindness, compassion, caring, sharing, right? All of these principles that we have is even unconditional love. That's what the great law of peace is all about. Is about peace and love and kindness and compassion. So there's not a separation of responsibilities. It's for everyone. So if we want to include that as internationally, and talking even about the environment, it's all interconnected. It's all the same.
So,
Thank you, Dr. Jacobs. That was really wonderful. I'm wondering how you see the relationship between Indigenous law and international law, and particularly the human rights frameworks in international law. And I know the right to self-determination is very strongly reflected. So do you see those as relevant in shape to the work that you're doing?
My first answer, the first thing that came to my head is when we talk about international law. International law was created from Eurocentric state creation. And so the history of our people is that we've always been into the international sphere to say we are a state within this international colonial state relationship. But it's always been Eurocentric laws that have created this international human rights framework that's based on state law, right? That's got to change. That's because, and they have to acknowledge, that's also decolonizing international law because it has never included Indigenous legal traditions or orders or laws or relationships, treaty relationships within that framework. So that's the first answer. And when we're talking about human rights, when we're talking about the right, so it's also very, very Eurocentric when we start talking about our rights as human beings. And so, because it's not an individual, we're part of that bigger. And that's actually the slide that didn't work. Was showing how we fit into our families and nations and communities. That we're not individuals. We are, but we're part of a bigger framework or community. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. And I think we're out of time now. Is that correct, Trudeau? We're supposed to end at 2? So I think I think Professor Jacobs will be around for a few minutes if you'd like to come and just speak with her. I don't think we're rushing off right away, but we'd like to have a few moments to do our closing. I'm not sure if are we singing or just speaking, or what do you want to do?
Closing song.
Closing song.
Close your right.
So thank you everyone for coming today, and thank you Trudeau for Professor Lemon for organizing this, and for all the support from the other people from Law, for Rochelle, for Mike, for Harrison, who all worked very hard behind the scenes to do everything that needed to happen to make this a wonderful success today. And especially thank you to Professor Jacobs. It's a great honor to have you here, and I feel really touched to learn from you, and I want to come and take a course from you at Windsor.
Okay, that sounds good.
I've always wanted to.
ask the Spirit to be here with us. We send our voices, our prayers. And so my sisters here are going to be doing a closing song. As you interested in studying or learning about Indigenous, I'll use that word Indigenous, that's the word that's going around now, Indigenous. We were Indians, we were savages, we were First Nations. There's all these titles they gave us, but now it's Indigenous, all right? But we all have a name for ourselves, and so all the tribes all have a name for themselves. And what it boils down to is that we are the people, the human beings, before we're anything else. And that's basically, in a nutshell, you could say that all our ceremonies, our way of life, our way of being, is just reminding ourselves. Because we don't, just think about this one. We seem to have forgotten that. Because we're caught up in this race thing, this gender thing, this class thing, this citizen thing, this age thing, and all these other things. But you can't have those things without the first one. So, and that's who we are, we're the people, we're human beings. So we acknowledge this gift. It's the gift of gifts that I'm told time and time again from our elders. That's who we are. It's a great gift to be a human being. We're unique beings. We have this ability to do two things. We can follow natural law, symbiotic beings, or we can be parasites. No offense to parasites, right? They're necessary, but sometimes we act like that. And I think, and this is like, I'm going to stop talking, but I think that when this colonialism came, it really activated that parasitic thing. We don't understand this anymore. This is the whole thing. And so our ceremonies remind us of this. Our teachers, our elders, of who we are, people, the gift of gifts of life, what it is to be a human being. So there's many dimensions to that, but I'm constantly reminding myself of that. That's why I go to ceremonies. That's why I listen to my elders. That's why I step into our ceremonies and that understanding the deeper meaning of that. My relationship to the earth, to the sun, to the sky, my relationship to being, to the trees, to the water that my sister spoke of. All of that, my relationship. And I'm soon to be a grandpa too. So I'm trying to think 7 generations down the road. Right? I'm trying to decolonize my own mind. Right? Everything. So I think for us to go anywhere as human beings, we really need to look at that, decolonizing ourselves. So the question I think I'm throwing to you as practitioners of law, are you going to be defending these laws that are racist, sexist, they're rooted in all of that? It's called colonialism. Are you going to step ahead and muster up that courage, that bravery, that understanding, to speak up for the people on all levels, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally? That's my question to you. Are you going to defend these laws? Are you going to help change these laws to find that connection, new policies, all of that, as defenders of that? That's my question to you as young practitioners, soon to be. So with that, cheer up. Okay? Okay? All of that. So I just want to say miigwech to you, and I'm going to say the short prayer again. Miigwech, thank you, Creator, for this day. Thank you, Wilfulness. Thank you, Grandfather, Son. Thank you. We send our thoughts to our ancestors who are here with us. We ask you to take our prayers, our thoughts today in a good way and kind way. From our hearts, we pray to you. May you speak on our behalf to that spirit world. May you never forget us. We've forgotten you, but may you never forget us. To our ancestors, to my ancestors, to your ancestors, we pray to you. Send those good words to you. And to speak on our behalf, to help us, to clear our minds, to open our hearts. We say we wish to you and to our mother, our first mother of mothers. We thank you for the water so many things to thank you. But we acknowledge you as our first mother of mothers, our mother earth. And to our Creator, we thank you again for this beautiful day, and this beautiful life that you have given us to help us clear our minds, to open our hearts, to say which to you, all our relations. And so my sisters are going to send their voices out there, a closing traveling song for all of you to have a safe journey home to your loved ones. May God